In the icy silence of northeastern China, far from the front lines of World War II, a secret facility known only by a number became the epicenter of some of the most grotesque human experimentation in modern history. This was Unit 731, Japan's covert biological and chemical warfare division. What happened inside its walls was so horrific that it remained hidden for decades. And even now, much of the truth remains shrouded in silence, immunity, and moral compromise. This is the story of science turned sadism and the lives lost to it. In 1932, Japan invaded Manchuria under the false pretense of Chinese aggression, but behind the military occupation was something far more calculated: experimentation on a scale the world had never seen. By 1936, the Japanese Imperial Army had established a sprawling compound outside Harbin. Officially, it was called the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department. In reality, it was the headquarters of Unit 731. The man behind the operation was Surgeon General Shirō Ishii, a microbiologist with a god complex. Obsessed with biological warfare, he convinced military leaders that Japan could gain a strategic edge by developing deadly pathogens as weapons of war. The site was vast, 150 buildings across 6 square kilometers. Hidden within its barbed wire and watchtowers, however, was something far worse than military research. Unit 731's primary mission? To test the limits of the human body, and develop weapons of mass death using live subjects. Civilians, prisoners of war, political dissidents, and even children were taken into custody. The Japanese military called them maruda, a cruel euphemism meaning logs. In their twisted logic, these weren't people. They were test material. The experiments were beyond comprehension. Vivisections were performed without anesthesia. Victims were cut open while conscious so doctors could study the effects of disease on live organs. Some had limbs amputated and reattached to the opposite side. Others had their stomachs removed and their esophagi sewn directly to their intestines. Frostbite studies involved exposing limbs to sub-zero temperatures until the skin turned black. Doctors then struck the limbs with sticks to test when the flesh would shatter like glass. Pathogen testing included the deliberate infection of victims with plague, cholera, syphilis, and anthrax. Some were locked in pressure chambers until their eyes burst. Others were injected with animal blood, seawater, or poisons. Many were mutilated, all were killed, none survived. But the horror didn't end within Unit 731's walls. Shirō Ishii's vision extended to real-world applications. Japanese bombers dropped ceramic bombs filled with plague-infested fleas on Chinese villages. Cholera-infected water supplies were introduced into towns to monitor mass casualties. Unit 731 also tested chemical weapons and flamethrowers on bound prisoners in open-air fields. Bombs were detonated next to live human targets to measure blast patterns and internal injuries. Entire regions became test sites. Some estimates suggest that tens of thousands of civilians died due to these biological attacks, an early, terrifying prototype of germ warfare. In 1945, Japan surrendered, and the world began uncovering the extent of its war crimes. Allied forces arrested key members of Unit 731, and evidence of the atrocities began to surface. But instead of facing trial at Nuremberg or Tokyo, Shirō Ishii and his colleagues were offered a deal. The United States government granted them immunity in exchange for their research data. The logic was cold and clinical. If the information could be used to develop America's own biological weapons program, it was too valuable to destroy. So while Nazi doctors were hanged, Unit 731 scientists were protected. Many went on to hold prestigious positions in post-war Japan. One became the head of the Japanese Red Cross, another served on the board of a major pharmaceutical company. The truth, meanwhile, was buried, just like the bodies. The victims of Unit 731 were given no names, no trials, and no reparations. Families in China and Korea never received recognition. Survivors who spoke out were ignored, threatened, or labeled liars. Japan's official history books often omit the existence of Unit 731 entirely. Even today, the Japanese government has never fully acknowledged the scope of these war crimes. The silence is deafening and deliberate. In the last 2 decades, activists, scholars, and even former Unit 731 staff have broken their silence. Some have admitted to what they saw or what they did. Declassified US documents confirmed the immunity deal. And in 2018, Japan's National Archives released the names of over 3,600 people affiliated with the program. But much of the truth still remains in the shadows. Unlike Nazi war crimes, Unit 731's legacy is still actively suppressed. Its story raises uncomfortable questions, not just about war and humanity, but about how far nations will go to win, and what they'll cover up to forget. What do we owe the victims of Unit 731? When history is hidden, are we doomed to repeat it? This isn't just a story of cruelty, it's a story of silence, and of the price paid when truth is traded for power. Let us never forget the names they tried to erase. Thank you for watching. If you believe these stories matter, subscribe to Shadowland Files, share this video, and stay tuned, because history still has shadows left to uncover.